بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نشهد أن محمد رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Begin of course by praising Allah, the Most High, the Most Exalted, the Most Honorable, our Master, the King, the Most Exalted. We testify to the Prophet of His Most Beloved, our role model and leader, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's beautiful being with you all here today. It's an honor being with Sister Sarah and Dr. Jasser on this panel. And it's amazing sometimes when revelation and research, they come together in many different ways. It proves to us again about the dynamic case that Islam has to the world that we should be presenting in a more honorable, dignified way. So I actually wanted to start with, because I'm making the case for youth. And when we say the word youth, generally a lot of people think about a lot of different things. Sometimes you say the word youth, people think of 5-year-olds to 7. Sometimes, there's different, opinions. But in general, youth, the United Nations actually defines youth as 14 to 30. So for anybody in their 28 or so, 29, you're still good. But in general, when we talk about the younger generation, children, how we divide them up in the centers I've been has been children, preteens, adolescents, and emerging adults. That's the technical definitions. So youth, inshallah ta'ala, for me, is really under the age of 21. And how we build that. So I actually want to start with the essence of the masjid. Why are masjids there? What's the purpose of a masjid? What's the goal of a masjid? What is it supposed to do? And actually, if we go back to Revelation, we go back to the first masjid, and we understand why did Allah build the first masjid. So you go back to Surah Al-Baqarah, and you go to the story of a great leader named Ibrahim. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ibrahim, Allah Azza wa Jalla tells him, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. Ibrahim was been tested so much in his life, and he always passed all the tests. He was challenged so much. Until a day came where Allah told him, Khalas Ibrahim, you know what? You're like the president of human history now. Inni ja'iluka linnasi imama. I've made you the leader of all of humanity. You're one of the greatest leaders of human history. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he didn't, pat himself on the back or, walk around and shake everybody's hand and have people congratulate him. He thought of something much more profound, which is my future. See, I can be a great person, I can be a great believer, I can pray, I can fast, I can do my hajj, it's all wonderful. But those are all selfish things. Me, myself, I don't myself save myself if I don't worry about the next generation to come, particularly my children, their children, their children. Because on the Day of Judgment, Allah might ask, check, everything is a check for me, but the generation after me had no checks. So I'm responsible. So he said beautiful wisdom. He said, قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. Oh Allah, will my children be leaders as well? Need my children to be leaders as well. If you grant me that dua as well, I'm good. I'll be happy. قال, Allah Azza told him, لا ينال عهدي الظالمين. Ya Ibrahim, some of your children will be criminals. They'll be oppressors. They'll be, they'll be, getting the door knock for a parent at 3 o'clock in the morning from police, telling your child, he got locked up for something. It is the worst catastrophe that can be possibly imagined by a parent. Your children will be criminals. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he understood this. So he began a project. The project was called a masjid. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. So we told Ibrahim, look, you're going to build a masjid, and it's going to be an attraction to people, and it will be a safe place for people. Safety and attraction, trust and security and attraction, what research told us, is what Allah Azza wa Jalla told us is the essence of a masjid. It's the purpose why it's there. And its purpose, those two reasons are part of the culture. So I'm going to speak about culture, or building a culture in a masjid or a center. But that culture is supposed to do something as well. That's not the goal. The goal is not having a great place. Everybody's having fun and laughing and playing. There's an even greater goal. So the essence, again, the culture, and we'll speak about building a culture in a masjid. The culture is not the goal. The goal is what the culture builds, which is people. The goal of centers is to build people, to transform lives, right? To save and guide humans. That's the goal. Everything else is a means. The masjid is a means to a goal. It is not the goal. A community that builds the masjid shouldn't celebrate. They should realize, oh, now we're starting the journey to actually doing what we need to do, which is building people. The Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet's masjid, in its physical nature, it was so basic, and like the Sheikh mentioned, it had nothing. But what did the Prophet ﷺ do? It didn't have a library, it didn't have a medical center, it didn't have any of those things. What did it do? It built great leaders and great people. That's the goal. So if we ever lose the goal, we should understand that the culture should build the goal of building people. So how do we, let's focus number one, how do we build a culture? The two things that I want to focus on, I didn't know Sarah was going to present the same things, but first is building a culture of trust. That vulnerability amongst young people, that people can be extremely vulnerable when they come to your center. They can be who they are, the way they are, whatever time, place, and circumstance that they're going through. And that is, again, the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. And I have many ahadith. I'll mention a few. A young man, his name is Abu Tawil. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ in the masjid, and he tells him, Ya Rasulullah, I've like done everything. There isn't, the hadith is so ambiguous that he says, I've done so much bad things. So the Prophet ﷺ tells him, أَأَسْلَمْتَ قَالَ فَأَمَّا أَنَا أَشْهَدُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. Yeah, I'm a Muslim. He told him, the Prophet ﷺ tells him, don't worry, kid. You're going to be all right. إِفْعَلِ الْخَيْرَاتِ وَاتْرُكُ السَّيِّئَاتِ. Leave the bad that you're doing. We'll help you. Do some good work. Allah will make everything, Allah will make everything خَيْرَاتْ كُلَّهُنْ. Allah will turn everything that you did bad and into good. Don't worry. So it's a young man coming to a place really losing hope, right? Drugs, alcohol, I don't know what he's coming with. It's ambiguous, but we can imagine what he's doing. And then he comes and he wants help. So when he comes, that vulnerability is very important. That trust is so important that it's built by people. So again, building a culture of vulnerability, trust, building safety, in the masjid. Right, that people can come with whatever problems. The Prophet ﷺ tells him, don't worry about it. So the man said, Ya Rasulullah, aghadarati wa fajarati. My disgusting, he essentially told him, Ya Rasulullah, I don't think you understand. Like clubs, bars, drinking, needles. I'm not sure what it was that he was going through, but he said, it's so nasty and it's so disgusting. So he said, yeah, don't worry. Na'am. And the man walked away. It's that attitude of vulnerability that a masjid should have for young people. It's a vulnerable person that comes to the masjid. Let alone, I've done this activity before. I actually did it in a khutbah once. Alhamdulillah, I was in one of the masjids that I worked at, one of the centers that I worked at. So I took the bottle of water and I poured it on the carpet in a khutbah. A little bit, just a little bit. So it startled everybody. My God, the masjid, the carpet, what are you doing? So I told him, can you imagine a man walking into any masjid on God's green earth, unzipping his pants and urinating in a corner? Can we comprehend the concept that an adult would walk into a masjid and go to a carpet corner and urinate, and when people want to correct him, he say, hey guys, sit down. Everybody sit, nobody move. I tell my daughters, freeze. Let him finish urinating on the carpet. There's no carpet, of course, but let him finish urinating on the carpet and the marble walls. Please let him finish, then we're going to talk to him. That's vulnerability. And when the Prophet ﷺ goes up to him, he feels the safety within him. So safety comes, trust is built when we have a culture that people can be vulnerable. People can come with their problems. People can come, subhanAllah, I worked in, Brooklyn is very different than Dallas. Right? The kids, the youth, the nature, the dynamics. And I feel very privileged that I can have those two, the discrepancy between them. Kids in Brooklyn, kids will come, their pants are down to their knees. right? You know, chains and earrings. And you know what? We had to create the space to the chagrin of people. I remember in the Mass Youth Center, and I'm going to give credit to the two centers I work with, I didn't deal with a lot of the problems that most masjids they deal with. Alhamdulillah, after working many years in the youth center, I grew up in the youth center, Brooklyn Youth Center, and then eventually I became the youth director there. So we worked very hard. I remember the first Ramadan I was a youth director. You're talking about 60, 70 youth didn't go to Taraweeh, they were playing basketball. It took us 2 years of work to bring them from the basketball courts to pray Taraweeh. Alhamdulillah, almost in 2 years, all the young people were praying Taraweeh. You guys don't have to clap. You're clapping. Most boards would say 2 years. We're paying you a salary to work with our, you want 2 years. It takes, the journey of building people takes time. But what we did was that the masjid dynamics were very interchangeable. Everybody meshed. There was trust. There was safety. So I remember one Ramadan in particular. 25-year-old man, a young man. He had just accepted Shahada. He was maybe 6'5". He was white, completely, hairless. He was bald and completely white, and he had tattoos from his neck to his ankles, all the way his arms. It was middle of summer, so he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And he walked in to pray Taraweeh. And I understood we built a good culture in our center when nobody did this. That's it. I understood that we were able to build a culture where people were vulnerable. Come in and don't worry, you won't be judged. And that's essential. Number two, this amn part, right? And then mathabatan linnas, this attraction part. How do we attract young people? And again, this is very, very important. And I'll talk about some of these things from a culture perspective. But masajid need to be dynamic. They need to be vibrant. They need to have things. And really, and I have many things because I wanted to focus on solutions. How do we create that? There's no way to create that if we don't invest in human resources. There's absolutely no, the walls of the building won't attract people. The really nice chandelier will not attract young people, right? The basketball court will not attract young people. They might come every now and then, but that's not enough. You have to invest in human resources. We have to invest in people that will create the dynamic nature of we want. And I know a lot of times we talk about the imam or the khatib, and that's great. But if we're gonna be trendsetters in youth development, then we need to be able to at least have, I believe, and this might be difficult, at least 3 levels of development resource allocation. The first of them is for sure somebody in charge. And again, by the way, I've been a youth director for almost 8 years. For some reason, I made it a full-time job. So or a career. So almost 4 years in New York and almost 3 years in Dallas. Every time I've met another youth director, just like the way I started, there's no manual. There's no way how to do it. So everybody's just winging it, right? We don't know. There's no system. So it's not like any other corporate job. You just walk in, and most of the time, almost 90% of the time, I've seen it. It's a 1 year, 2 year stopgap. Where everybody's hyped to do something, but they don't understand the system and how. And I believe, really, if we focus on 3 main things to create vibrancy. Number 1, somebody that focuses on programs and activities. I've had the honor, and again, I shout out to Mass New York and Mass Dallas. No board has ever asked me, don't do or do this event. They've always been extremely supportive. And I'm talking about events like fashion shows, Youth Got Talent shows. I'm talking about within the masjid. We've had spa nights. We've had all-nighters. We've had football games. We've had we've had playing football in the masjid, tackle, soccer, whatever it is. And really it causes, it's difficult sometimes to accept that. But to break the bad habits or cultures that we have to be able to be willing to empower our youngsters to do what needs to get done. Really, and alhamdulillah, and again, I'm privileged like that. I hear the complaints of youth directors that say, my masjid doesn't allow me to have guys and girls meet in the same room to plan, right? And the biggest problem that I had ever was just last year. We had a Youth Got Talent program, and we wanted to bring musical instruments into the masjid, into the center. So the first year we did it, I didn't care about the musical instruments. Last year we brought musical instruments in the center, and it was one of our most amazing events. So there has to be an empowerment there. There has to be somebody that does programs and services. There has to be somebody that does youth, what Christians call youth ministry, which is somebody that develops our youth, can speak to them, can understand their difficulty. So that's another position. And then a third position is a counseling position. As a matter of fact, alhamdulillah, at the center I'm in now, I am in charge of that ministry part, the development part. We have a youth director in charge of programs and activities, and we're bringing on a youth counselor. Really, those three elements are needed, and most of the time, masjid pay for one person to do everything. And that's why it fails. It will always fail. Every single time. We want to see, 50% of our youth are our community. Well, there are 100% of the future. So if we want to allocate the right means of building them, we must let your talking, we don't need talk, we need action. Right? Put your money where your mouth is. So every center should be putting its allocation into human resources. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm sure in the questions and comments, we'll finish the discussion. But I ask Allah Azza to make us of those that constantly build and invest in our youth. I'll end with this quick story. A father had a young child come up to him one day, and he was bugging him. So he told him, go away. I'm on my phone. I'm doing my iPad, watching my new CNN is on. Just go away, kid. So the dad kept bugging, the kids kept bugging him. So the father told the child, he had a newspaper, I know it's old, but whatever. So he had a picture of a man in the newspaper. So he ripped up the picture of the man, gave it to the kid. He said, here, kid, go and, tape the man together, do an art project. So the kid comes back in 5 minutes. He finished this, he ripped it up in a piece, he put it all together in 5 minutes. He came back and he said, my son, how did you put the man so fast together? He said, Dad, on the other side of the picture, on the other side of the newspaper, there was a picture of the world. It was so easy for me to put the world together. So on the other side, I put the man together. So when we develop and build men and women, we change the world. And I ask Allah to make us of those that always invest in our young people. Barakallahu feekum.